线长山又高，处处港口都险要。
Hello and welcome back to Strait Talk, where we dive deep into the Taiwan Strait, a pivotal frontline between Western hegemony and Eastern resistance, bringing you a perspective of Taiwan, cross-strait relations, mainland China, and beyond, not typically found in Western mainstream media. Today, I'm in the city of Shanghai with a man who played a big role in developing Chinese hip-hop and turning it into what it became today. So, Showtyme, thank you very much for taking your time out of your busy schedule to come on this podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on your show, and it's a pleasure to finally meet you face to face. This is Showtyme from Detroit City, spreading love and light, reporting live from Shanghai, the city of dreams, in the belly of the beast, the PRC.
You know, I really can't believe I'm sitting here with you because when I was back in high school, I was watching Iron Mike competition videos on YouTube. So I guess you gave a little brief introduction to yourself already, but why don't you let my audience know, who you are, where you're from, what brought you here to China all the way back in 1999 before it was even popular for foreigners to come over here?
Cool, bro. Well, I always say my story, and I think there's some consistent themes that are going to come out in all the questions that I'm going to try to answer. But my story is a bit of I always felt like I was caught between three worlds: God, government, and gangsters. And that's been the most consistent theme of my life. Coming from Detroit City, born and raised in Detroit, born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, huge hip-hop nerd, fell in love with hip-hop music and culture, which was quite niche and pretty underground in Detroit. And very influenced by the political scene in Detroit, a lot of radical movements, militant movements, and through some of the inspirations, my local inspirations coming out of Detroit, whether it was Malcolm X, or it was later a Grace Lee Boggs, or James Boggs, or the League of the Revolutionary Black Workers, or even the Nation of Islam, pointing my direction towards Asia, and in particularly China. And so I finally made the trip to China in 1999. I was looking to explore the world and just to see how people live under a different political and economic system. And I found myself staying in China and making it my home. And now I've lived half of my life here in China. Like half of my entire life now is equally been split between the first 25 years in the United States and these past 25 years in the People's Republic of China. And I came very humble, with the intention of just kind of learning from China, try to soak up as much knowledge and understanding as I could. And I came under the impression that there wasn't much hip hop here, and maybe this is something that I could actually make a contribution to China, just spread my passion and love for hip hop and kind of be an ambassador for my city and be a bridge for my city through hip hop. And I've been doing that in China for 25 years, and it's taken me on an incredible journey. I think most people know about the Iron Mike, that rap battle. I was talking to someone earlier the other day. I met someone, a lawyer actually, who I was shocked. They knew everything about the Iron Mike. They were, happy to meet me. I couldn't believe that they knew everything about it. Meeting people from all different walks of life that know about the Iron Mike in China. But I was telling him, like, that wasn't even, in my estimation, not even the biggest thing that I've done in my life experience. I've had such a rich and full experience, but I'm happy that rap battle has done what it's done in China, and it's gotten some global recognition. So that's the short story.
Well, I guess the way you describe hip-hop when you were growing up is kind of like the state of hip-hop when you first came here for quite a while until it really burst into the mainstream. Yeah, so you've really seen hip-hop in China turn from something considered foreign that only a few Chinese people took part in to something that I would say nowadays is an integral part of Chinese pop culture and is impossible not to hear in China. Like, even if you didn't want to hear it, there's no way you're not going to hear it. And I guess that kind of mirrors the way you saw hip-hop go from something very underground in Detroit to something that's, one of the biggest global rappers today is from Detroit. Probably never thought that would happen so soon, right? When you were growing up. It's one of those things where it's like you knew it would get big, but at the speed of it is just kind of astonishing. It's kind of like when I first came to Shanghai in 2005. Well, there was a typhoon, so that doesn't count. 2007. I kind of saw the trajectory of mainland China and its growth, especially after the 2008 Olympics, but I never expected the economic growth and standard of living and stuff to just grow this quickly. So,
Well, that's an excellent point, brother. Like, the hip hop scene in Detroit was so small. By the time I came to China in '99, Eminem was just breaking. He was just breaking as a celebrity. He just put out his first album. So I never predicted that a Detroit rapper would blow up so big to be the number one. And it was interesting watching hip hop grow in China, because it got to a point as a promoter in Shanghai, promoting hip hop and building it from nothing to something. There was a point where I realized that, man, the scene in Shanghai is actually bigger than the hip hop scene in Detroit. Like there was more clubs, more parties. It was already bigger in the late '90s and early 2000s. And so, but even still, because of the scale, Shanghai has 26 million people. You can do that. You've got 26 Detroits basically in the city of Shanghai, so it's going to be bigger. But we never predicted that. We knew that there was a cap and a glass ceiling, and we were involved in this community for decades, and we knew that ultimately there has to be a breakthrough because the people wanted it. We didn't know it would be as big as it is. And the same thing can be said as I remember that with hip hop in the States, because it was 1998 that many people cite as the pivotal year when hip-hop went from underground to mainstream and started to, dominate the Billboard charts and Grammys and, Lauryn Hill. That was the crossover year that hip-hop never looked back. And so there are a lot of parallels, and we can get into that a little bit later.
Oh, we will.
Yeah. There's a lot to grapple with.
So I got 3 questions about all of this. So the first one is, what got you to put together such a trend-setting competition? And 2, how did you, as a foreigner, establish the network needed to put Iron Mike together? And 3 is, did you expect Iron Mike and Chinese hip-hop to grow the way that they did? And before we get into all of this, why don't you let my audience know what Iron Mike is?
Yeah, so Iron Mike was a rap battle that was founded in 2002. And one of the things I pride myself on, I always tell the story, and it really dates how far I go back, but I was organizing rap battles in China before the movie 8 Mile even came out. So for the people watching this, you can just kind of date yourself. When did you get into battle rap? What inspired you? That movie 8 Mile, battle rap had already long been in existence, but it was an underground culture. And it had already died and revived multiple times in America. And there was a small bustling scene in Detroit. The venues that would do like battle rap, several blocks from my house was a hip hop shop, a clothing shop that was founded by Maurice Malone, a gentleman who later, I ended up having a lot of close connections to and friends, and we've been in contact on social media. Maurice Malone is one of the founders of the Maurice Malone fashion brand and one of the pioneers of the clothing industry. He always had connections with China. He, in fact, he's married to a Chinese woman. So he was doing, even in Detroit, just a few blocks from me, the place that got Eminem his launching pad had a connection to China, and we didn't even know it. And later, Royce the 5'9" was telling me they used to battle in a Chinese restaurant. One of the restaurants would open up the space and let people battle, and that was one of the early, spaces that gave birth to the whole hip hop community in Detroit. And I say that to, it was the same kind of humble beginnings in China. It's just finding people, where did I get the network from? Just local friends. The dance community was already thriving, so I had a lot of homies that had resources in the dance community, like dance studios or spaces like in a in a shopping mall where they would give you a facility where you could use the space for free. And we would use different spaces in nightclubs. The DJs were, there was a couple, like one DJ really in Shanghai who I hooked up with, DJ V-Nuts. And nobody was really into rap. And so I kind of was searching for the rappers. I couldn't even find them at that time. It was like, they were like legends. There's supposed to be this one guy that can rap, and then I'll search all over the city for him. Then I'll find him, and I'm like, all right, let me hear you spit. And the first thing they do is verbatim spit an Eminem rhyme. Like, for someone coming from Detroit looking for rap in China, and you're here, told that this guy is the Chinese rapper, and he can't even rap in Chinese, but he can mimic Eminem. Like, that narrative, that link to Detroit has always been consistent, and it's consistent to this day, that it's always been there. But to make a long story even shorter, I did it with the support of the grassroots community. I didn't think that, like I said, I didn't have a blueprint. I know I love rap. I knew what battle rap was. I know how important battles are to hip hop culture to develop the scene. And so I was experimenting from the things that I saw online. There's a couple of like battle rap websites that are gone. It's like battlerap.com. You can see Eminem's battle and Supernatural and Juice. And so I was kind of piggybacking on that, and we just put together the battle in the shopping mall in 2002, and then it spread to being a nationwide movement, peaking out at like doing 35 cities in the competition, some battles having 200 MCs on the stage in one city, and running now for, we're in our 23rd year. So 23 years of continuous battles all across China, just pretty much laid the foundation for rap culture in China.
Wow, that's just learned a lot of history about both China and Detroit from your little just summary of how this all came to be. But before we move on, I gotta respond to a phone call. It's that North Korean restaurant.
Oh, nice.
I think they're trying to confirm the reservation, so I'm gonna call back real quick.
So they're just checking up to make sure that we're gonna show up.
Yeah.
Which probably means it's gonna be booked and it's packed.
Yeah, because a lot of people want to go see them perform. You're gonna see a concert tonight.
I'm excited, man.
Yeah. You're gonna see. Sometimes they even sing Cantonese songs. You ever hear a Cantonese song sung with a Korean accent?
North Korean Cantonese accent.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting because I think there is a common theme here, which is there is this common narrative, which is hip hop had its beginnings in 1973 in the Bronx when DJ Kool Herc, provided beats for a party, which I think this is one of those things where it's like, okay, this is the first like recorded incident of this happening, but you have to imagine at that time people with records listening to the same things were probably, a lot of people were doing similar things, but there just had to be one guy that really brought it into the public conscious. And the way I describe hip hop in China is because hip hop is something foreign, it so happened that various Chinese people, they would be exposed to different rappers, especially when it got more mainstream and it got pushed onto mainstream media over here, like I don't know about on the mainland, but in Taiwan where they had MTV and stuff, they would, they would hear the latest, whatever's popular in America. So, and then you have a bunch of Chinese people saying, okay, I'm going to try my hand at it. I'm going to create Chinese hip hop for a Chinese audience. So what you have happening is you have a lot of little tiny groups of friends doing their own thing, kind of like how the Great Wall of China was originally a bunch of small fortresses, small city walls, until it became one Great Wall that when it was connected by Qin Shi Huang. And then after the Qin dynasty, then came the Han dynasty and etc. The Great Wall kind of kept on growing and changing. So I think that's how I would describe the development of Chinese hip hop. And I just want to know what you think of this assessment, and would you say that Iron Mike served as one of the played the role of Qin Shi Huang, connecting a bunch of these little tiny city walls together to form one Great Wall?
I would say that I might be giving Iron Mike too much credit, because in my view, I was really passionate about hip hop culture, and I got that passion actually coming to China. Mm-hmm. I thought I knew what hip hop was. I was really into rap. I was into rap culture and the rap industry, and I couldn't see the separation between the industry, the commercial industry, advertising, how all that works to create this image in your head of a community. I'm in America, I'm watching BET, I'm reading the Source magazine, and I'm buying cassette tapes and later CDs. So that's the basis of my world for hip hop, actually, as a consumer. And I didn't understand all the manipulation in it. Later, it all started to make sense. You know, hip hop, the community is based on 4 pillars and 4 major arts. You know, it's not hip hop without the DJ culture, the b-boy scene, the graffiti, and the rappers. You have to have all of them. And to deny any of those cultures and not be part of them, I think that's not authentic hip hop. You can be rap culture and you can, you know, kind of branch away from hip hop. But the beautiful thing about in China was people understood that. At the time that I arrived in '99, they understood that, and they were really into the arts, and that's why the dance scene was flourishing, already established. The graffiti scene was bubbling, and the DJ scene was just starting to pick up, and rap was non-existent. And so to say that I am like, I did, when you look at my early battles, it was always the b-boys and graffiti artists that were helping me put on the event, and they would come and party, and they're always an element of it. And so I'm really proud of that, and that's my foundation, that's my network. I could talk about a little bit later. Like the b-boys, I got a homeboy in Shenzhen who's been running battles for about 10 years. He would do a b-boy battle, and over 10,000 people would come and show up.
Wow.
Can you imagine a b-boy, like Iron Mike still hasn't done a 10,000, like I have done 20,000 event, and I have my own stage, Iron Mike stage, but it's part of a bigger music festival, and it was all rappers, mostly from the Iron Mike. So I can say like we've achieved that level with the rappers. We've surpassed it. But his was a little different because it wasn't commercial, they didn't have a TV show, and it was organic and grassroots. And when I say 10,000 people showed up, it was 10,000 b-boys. It wasn't like there were spectators coming. No, all 10,000 were b-boys and b-girls that came across the whole country like warrior to show up. So that's how big the event is. But for rap, well, there's no question, for like 15 years, there actually was no other rap competition or annual event. I was the only one. So for the rap world, I would say, yeah, there's no question. But hip hop in general is a lot bigger and a lot more going on. So I don't want to take that much credit for what we did. But, you know, rap was always more controversial. And that was the reason why it didn't develop. And that's why a lot of people are just blown away by me and my story, because it was pretty grimy and it was very underground, very controversial. And it wasn't meant for television.
Right.
What I was doing, it wasn't. It was meant for our community, for us, our safe space. And the more the cameras and the TV and the video started to come into play, you know, the more conservative I got and the more or less I wanted to stay out the limelight, because underground is, you know, in America, underground became, after the commercial industry blew up, underground became like a genre. You're like trying to be underground or fit into the underground category. Underground in China literally meant you're in a gray economy. It's underground because, you know, you can't come up above the light of day. You're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get in trouble. And so I talked about that in 2007 in my interview in Foreign Policy. And I don't really like to talk about it and frame it that way, because I don't want people to get the impression that I'm doing something illegal or negative. But I spoke really directly in the Foreign Policy interview that I did in 2007, and the great Jeff Chang wrote the article, and that's another institution. Jeff Chang is a writer, a Chinese-American writer on hip-hop, who I got the plug from my homeboy O-Dub, a DJ, and also a writer. You know, shout out to the writers for giving us light and helping us get publicity. But yeah, just a little segue into, you know, to the question you asked me, a little tangent, if you will.
That reminds me of something that my friend likes to say. He said, if you let any boomer Chinese parent run this country, it would be exactly the same as it is right now. And you know, like the whole boomer parent and accepting hip hop as something that you know, they didn't really grow up with in China. it takes a while for them to get over some of the shock with some of the more the means of expression that you don't see as much in other forms of art that they're accustomed to. And I kind of want to talk about the development of Chinese hip hop, its history from the way we understand it now, because being from Taiwan, my understanding is a little bit more Taiwan centric. And in the early 90s, you had this group called the LA Boys.
That's right.
Yeah, they were a group of Chinese Americans. Some of them were born in Taiwan, moved to America. Others were born in America, and they rapped in. They danced a bit, and they rapped in Hokkien or Taiwanese Hokkien. So it was something very new. It was a new genre. You have a bunch of ABCs, American-born Chinese, rapping in a Chinese language, but with an American accent. Most people who hear, Chinese with American accents hear Mandarin with American accents, but this was something different. So that kind of brought hip hop a little bit more into the public consciousness of Taiwan. And around this time, I think it was 1998, there was a hip hop forum called MU that a lot of fans of hip hop started going on. I think it was created by one of the three members of Tri Poets. And that is actually where MC Hot Dog got his start. He started uploading little demos that he recorded at home. I don't know if you heard one of them called 钓虾场. Yeah.
In his home studio? Was it recorded audio or?
It's recorded audio,
Okay.
and he actually made the beat himself for that song. It's like super grimy.
我酒后驾车，技术一样很棒。喝过酒后，我的右脚特别强壮。油门催泪到底，一路扛满横冲直撞。身边的马子握着我，那死都不肯放。
It's very funny storytelling. He's very wild imagination. You could tell he was this nerdy kid.
Yeah.
And that's actually where he met Duaki. Controversial figure over here on the mainland because of his separatist views, but can't deny that he played his role in the development of Taiwanese hip hop and by extension Chinese hip hop.
He's got a song with Nas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big, bridge to build. That's great.
Yeah. No, but they had this hip hop label called Moyen or Magic Stone, which was an imprint of Rock Records, which is one of the biggest local record labels in Taiwan. And Magic Stone was more willing to experiment with alternative music. And by the late 90s, I mean, Taiwan politically and economically liberalized over the 90s. So that was like a time when everybody was super optimistic about trying new things. So I guess MC Hot Dog was at the right place at the right time.
徐怀钰 fuck， 蔡依林 suck。 这样的音乐 motherfucking bullshit， 以你这样的形象，你还能再红几年？金光党做这种音乐在骗钱。
And I guess they had their in-house DJ too, DJ 小四.
Yeah.
And yeah, he got pretty big underground to the point where he was selling more bootleg copies than legitimate copies. Right. And but then he went and did his military service. I think he did a little over a year. He was stationed in Matsu, one of the offshore islands on the mainland, actually. And then he decided, okay, he's gonna do one last album to see if he can blow up. This is the album Wake Up. And Wake Up, it was released in 2006, but it won the Golden Melody Awards in 2007. And the Golden Melody Awards is like the Chinese Grammys. Yeah. And that's when hip hop really got pushed into the mainstream, but not as much as it would later become, because what I mean by hip hop being in the mainstream back in 2007 was you were either MC Hot Dog or you were underground. Was that a pretty accurate assessment at the time?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so
I love to pick up on this stuff because, man, I was right there the entire time, and I'm here in the mainland. We later I went to Hong Kong around 2000, 2001. It took me a long time to eventually get to Taipei, and I never made it out there until like 2018 was the first time I went out there.
Oh wow!
So I always assumed because the Canto pop and the I guess Mando pop. That's what they called it, Mando pop.
Yeah.
The Mandu pop in Taiwan and the Canto were already developed. They already had the music industries and labels set up. In fact, the headquarters for the major international labels were all based in Hong Kong. Universal, Sony, BMG. 2000, I was out there knocking on their door trying to get them to invest in Chinese hip hop. They closed the door on me. I'm assuming that Taiwan and Hong Kong will be much more developed than the mainland, and they were going to lead us to the promised land. And there's a key word that you said is development. And this is something that I learned in China, what that word truly means. And this is something that the Chinese get. Development versus underdevelopment. And capitalism, without a question, can play a role in development, but it's not the same as actual development, because when you unleash the capitalist forces and you allow the market to play, it is a self-interested kind of development. It is development for me and mine. And so, and I think that's why the Hong Kong and Taiwanese hip-hop scenes didn't have a bigger impact on the mainland as I did, because they were promoting their product and their image and their artists by me. They actually were not investing in the scene and building the scene grassroots from the ground up, which is development, is really about benefiting the people at the grassroots level. And so, but as early as 2000, even myself coming to China and it being a blank slate, we needed to have some kind of role model, some kind of example of what Chinese rap would look like. And I found those examples all out of mainland China. There was 3 main groups or acts that impacted me, that gave me the courage to believe that this is even possible. And that was one, LMF in Hong Kong.
有佢教曉我哋，唔係東亞病夫和皮膚，都可以做返自己，唔要跟人哋抄，人哋黐，人哋中國人，唔要睇死自己。
Right.
Those guys, what they did, which was also controversial, and I got really close with those guys. So I went to Hong Kong to like do a visa run, and they had a party. It was their first part. LMF had just came out. 99, 2000 was the year. Hot Dog, LMF, they all kind of broke. And I gate crashed. They did their first club party, and I gate crashed the party. I hopped on stage and I rapped and I performed with MC Yan. DJ Tommy, did his thing. The promoter was like an Australian promoter. I remember, probably like a year later, opening up my dresser drawer, and there was a little envelope, a Chinese envelope. I had kept it for forever and never even opened it. And I opened it. I didn't know what this thing was. It was like square, and opened it, and it was like a couple thousand Hong Kong dollars. The promoter had actually gave me a hong bao for gate crashing her party and hopping on stage. And if people don't understand what that is part of Chinese culture, sharing money, giving money in a red packet, and sometimes you don't get paid for work. People do work pro bono for free to help develop. And if you can afford to give them something, you give them a red packet. And it's just like a thing in China. And so I gate crash, I meet LMF, I meet MC Yan, becomes a good friend. I'm the first person to bring LMF to China. They came for my birthday party, like 2002. I invited them to the underground party. I was shocked by even that time. They had never even had a gig. They thought that they were banned in the mainland. Brought them through, developed a relationship, and I was the plug for Yan because the guys in Hong Kong and Taiwan had no connection to the hip hop scene. And so I was booking Yan for shows in like Wuhan to be the judge for the Wuhan Iron Mike, or, in Shanghai, be the judge. And then he would meet all these rappers from across the country. And that's how he got plugged into the hip hop scene and took that flavor and that knowledge and brought it back to Edison. And, Edison Chan, and be the ghostwriter for all it. So Yan was getting his knowledge from the local scene, bringing it back to them. So that's one pathway. But in Taiwan, Hot Dog was the first guy that I saw, and I remember when I saw him, it was a video of him in a white tank top, white beaded, tank top, rapping in the studio. Like it looked like it wasn't a home studio, but he had the microphone set up with the screen in front of it, and he was doing his thing, and I was like, man, like, look, guys, this is what we need to be doing. So the LMF, the MC Hot Dog, the Underground Hot Dog, and then Jay Chow.
Oh.
出声音，让他们安静，不敢相信，继续前进。他们畏惧，睁大眼睛，他们躲避，能够放弃，专心聆听我的声音。是每个人都不公平，也没道理，只能不舍。
Jay Child came out with that commercial kind of Bone Thugs and Harmony sounding music. I was like, this guy, he's putting on for the culture. And we did a show with Jay Child like 2002. I brought on some early rappers for MTV Awards. I took them on. We opened up for him. It was crazy. It was unbelievable. And those are the things that kind of inspired me. Later, I got to learn about Machi because I got into the clothing business. And my boss was a Shanghainese clothing manufacturer who had went to New York. He started selling bootleg Olympic T-shirts at the 84 Olympics in LA. He went out there, sold or it was the 88, 84, I think. He's selling these T-shirts, made a lot of money, and realized that he could be a sporting wear manufacturer. He started up, doing generic sportswear. He made clothes for Sir Benny Miles, which is one of the first hip-hop clothing brands. They kind of fell out. And he had a bad relationship with Benny. And he's like, man, why don't I just do my own clothing brand? And he started a clothing brand called Johnny Blaze. It went up, blew up in New York. He got all the rappers, Mobb Deep, Guru, Wu-Tang Clan. They all were doing advertisement for Johnny Blaze. And he had the 2 4-4s. That was his main logo, the 44, the Johnny Blaze with the flame on it. He had a distributor in Taiwan. And when I started working for the clothing company, I linked up with that distributor and met him, and they were giving the clothes to Machi and Machi Didi. And Machi and Machi Didi were all managed by Jeff, who was Jeff Wang, who was a founding member of the LA Boys that you mentioned.
Yeah, we call him Machi Daga.
Machi Daga, he was the OG. And so that's how I got connected to him. And he was always like a mentor I would always send him little emails and messages and talk, and he would be like a mentor to me in the scene, talking about the industry and giving advice, because just like you said, he had took the LA Boys. It's kind of like MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, Crew, this LA style hip hop with the baggy pants and the sharp cuts, and he took that to a certain level, and then he parlayed it into a whole empire where he had, like I said, the Machi brothers, then he had the kid, Machi Didi. They were all wearing Johnny Blaze with the 44 on it.
Yeah.
And so I was starting to get tapped in, but Taiwan, one more side note, that distributor, he was more, he was also into the B-boy scene, the dance scene. And I guess something he fell out with Patrick, who was the owner of Johnny Blaze. Somehow there was some tension, and I got caught in between it. I was just a marketing guy. I was trying to help him out, promote the Johnny Blaze in Taiwan. This guy ripped off the Iron Mike. He decided that he's going to take the name and organize his own Iron Mike dance battle and use it to promote the clothes. And I'm like, man, you SOB, you just stole my IP. And I think it was because he knew there's nothing you can do about it. I'm here. You're going to sue me over here. You're going to come over and catch me. And that was a wake-up call. At the time, I was so young and early, I hadn't even technically registered the Iron Mike. But it was still, it was a gray area because the IP regulation in Taiwan is different. So anyway, that story is an old school story. You can probably Google and research online Iron Mike dance battle in Taiwan and see what comes up. But it was unauthorized, and that's a little bit of tidbit of history.
It's so interesting how so many of these things are connecting. I mean, I know a lot of these individual things, but I didn't know of the connections behind the scenes, especially the connections between, Chinese hip hop and Detroit, or how Chinese people have been involved in hip hop earlier than I had expected.
Yeah.
And it's not just in the sense of, Wu-Tang Clan sampled the Shaw Brother movies. No, it's some actual Chinese restaurant owners giving their space to event organizers to host their events and everything. So this kind of goes into my next question, which it's a little bit sensitive. And as you know, some people in America consider Chinese rap, Chinese hip hop, and hip hop by non-black artists to unequivocally be a form of anti-black racism because it's cultural appropriation. So, I'm going to give my thoughts real quick on it, which is you can have a Chinese rapper from Shanghai, right? And the hip hop he makes, with the exception of that Eminem imitator that you told me about earlier, but hey, a lot of this stuff begins with imitation before finding who you are. But with the exception of that, I mean, a Shanghainese rapper is not going to make the same hip hop as somebody from Chengdu, and a Chinese rapper in general is not going to make the same hip hop as somebody from Detroit or New York or Atlanta or LA, New Orleans. So I kind of don't really get this sort of accusation, because I think it is a form of cultural exchange and development. And as we'll get on later, hip hop's become a very integral part of Chinese pop culture. And at this point, Chinese hip hop is as much of an American art, black art form as it is a Chinese art form over here, at least. I mean, I'm not going to say like the stuff Lil Wayne makes is Chinese. That's not what I'm trying to say, but it's, you know what I mean? It's like you got hip hop originated on the East Coast, but then you had West Coast hip hop, which had a totally different sound, though with some commonalities and some obvious influences. But it's the more it spreads, the more variations of it you'll see, and I think it's a beautiful thing. So what is your take on this topic?
All right, yeah, it is controversial. I'll give two kind of different takes. One is a broader take about culture in general, and I don't believe that anybody can claim culture. I don't. Culture in its purest form, we don't know the origins, the exact specific one. People always claim that they started it, but there was something that predated, that influenced, inspired them, and we don't necessarily know where it came from. I think that the possibilities of unearthing and rediscovering human culture and human history are endless. And we need to keep our mind open to that and keep the balance. There has to be a balance of acknowledging the history that we know and still keeping our minds open to the possibility of the unknown. It's important. And that should humble you, because Buddhism flourishes all around the world right now. It's a beautiful, vibrant culture. Buddhism started, as you know, some people would argue, India. It started in India. But if you ask anyone, like, you know, where does Buddhism live? The last place they're going to say is India. It's not flourishing and thriving in India. They don't have the legacy of the great monasteries and the monks. Buddhism migrated out of India and spread to East Asia, where it's been dominant.
Yep.
And that is the story of culture. Culture picks up and moves like water, and it's going to settle in the most fertile ground. So just because hip hop may have originated in a certain part of the world, that doesn't mean that part of the world has all the necessary ingredients to sustain it and to let it flourish and develop to a higher level. And so this could be a possibility for the future of hip hop. It might even be bigger, and I would even argue that it is already bigger in China than it is the United States. And that's something that you have to look at and accept. Because right now, if you want to know where all of the legends and pioneers of b-boy culture are in America, they're here in China right now. Look this up, Google that. They're with my brothers, like when you say, how did I start the scene? I said the b-boys. You know, I got a brother named Wang Han. He's got a movement called The Circle. Right now, like Mr. Wiggles, Crazy Legs, all these guys are coming out 3-4 times a year. They're all busy and active in China, teaching, giving lessons where they're respected for their craft. And so there's this idea that, you know, culture moves. And so, you may have started it, but it's not cultural appropriation, because hip hop in and of itself is cultural appropriation. Hip hop in and of itself has taken culture from everywhere. Hip hop would not exist as the way it does if not for Chinese culture. Chinese culture, in my teachings and my understanding, is a pivotal foundation, one of the foundations of hip hop. So if you want to say, so this goes into the controversy that's going to be sparked up pretty soon with the foundational Black American movement leader. I haven't forgot his name, but this guy, he's got these documentaries out, Tariq Nasheed. Tariq Nasheed. And so, how did I forget his name? Because we had a little spat or whatever. But he's got this documentary where that's going to come out. We need to see it. Where he argues that Kool Herc, all those guys, Bambaataa, like, they shouldn't get the credit. The Caribbean influence shouldn't get the credit. This is a foundational Black American movement in art form. And I'm up for that debate and challenge. Instead of going, like, taking the low ground and taking shots at him, because he's already said some things, online, I would like to, set up the conference. I'll come to the States. I'll bring my scholars. You get your scholars. We'll have a conference and debate it out and look at the facts. But the facts remain that if you look at the early pioneers of hip-hop, there's a reason why so many of them call themselves Grandmaster. Grandmaster Cass, Grandmaster Theodore.
I never thought of it that way, but
Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. It's a reason because they were watching Chinese martial arts films, and that culture that they absorbed influenced hip-hop in profound ways with the b-boy culture and the dance moves. They were watching Chinese martial arts. They were mimicking and copying those styles and integrating with their own. Without those moves they saw in the Kung Fu flicks, there's no guarantee we would have got the evolution of that. And many people trace the moves to what they saw. We can historically trace them to those films. And there is something about the culture, the spirit of, like, brotherhood and fraternity and protecting your master and revenge, all of these, and representing your community, the Wu-Tang and the Shaolin, all these kind of tribal elements that resonated with people in New York, that they connected with, and that you can say that they culture appropriated, but no one does. Mm-hmm. No one says that the Wu-Tang Clan owes China, a copyright. They want their IP rights. They want their name back. You just took a whole city that you ultimately went to. Some of you guys, but most of you don't even know where it is on the map. I live in the Wu. It's been my home for 25 years. I literally live in the kingdom of the Wu. I've shed blood and spilt blood in the Wu. I know what that means. I'm out here. Like, it's my reality. The real Wu. Welcome to the Wu, baby. So, there's so many things that need to be discussed. And most Chinese people don't know that. They don't promote it that way. But I do know, like, with the b-boy culture, they get it and they do it in a very humble way. They know for a fact that their culture influenced American hip-hop. They don't even need to brag about it. They want you to come over here, meet them, and learn. They want to learn from you, and then they want to share with you the knowledge that they have. It's a very beautiful thing where no one is crying about cultural appropriation. Everyone is trying to stay true to the code and show respect. I must say, like, the one thing about China, the culture that the Chinese can do better, is nothing wrong with copying and mimicking. Like you said, Eminem, if you listen to his early raps, and he even admits, but when you really listen to Master Ace and put it side by side with early Eminem and LL Cool J, you'll realize that he's mimicking their cadence and their flow to a T. Like, he's copying them, no debate. I was listening to Master Ace long before M. That is Eminem in his early stages. And so you can copy and mimic people, but you gotta give credit. You gotta cite your sources. Don't sit there and say that, you didn't hear, you weren't inspired by these people. You got to give them their props. So take from everything, take from everywhere, but acknowledge where you're getting it from. It's the scumbag part is when you learn from someone and you never even acknowledge that you learned from them. That's the violation that I think we need to correct.
It's just common human decency.
It should be. It should be. It should be.
No, but I never really connected the whole, like, Grandmaster this or whatever with these martial arts films, but it makes so much sense. And also, you look at a lot of rappers in America, they like to dress up in these fancy tangzhuang. Like, and Up and Spoke to where Nate Dogg walks on stage to deliver that famous line of his. He's wearing a Chinese tangzhuang, and as a Chinese person, you see that. I can't help but feel a sense of pride. It's like, wow, this culture is being looked up to and respected by foreign people who are sharing it with a much newer audience. Like with the Up and Smoke tour, it was one of the biggest hip hop tours at the time.
Yeah.
How many of the people in the audience have ever seen one of those like traditional Chinese outfits.
Right.
Right.
They probably didn't even know the whole time. They didn't even know. They didn't know Johnny Blaze. All the people in New York wearing the big hoodies, the thick hoodies, never knew that Johnny Blaze was Chinese owned, and all these products were manufactured in China. So it's the hidden history, that doesn't really get exposed unless people from the inside like share the stories.
Yeah. So I think we went through some of the turning points. I think, though, I want to touch back on one of the turning points, which is MC Hot Dog winning the Golden Melody Award in 2007. That put hip-hop into the mainstream. At least people knew about hip-hop, and a lot of mainstream artists were collaborating with rappers. And of course, even before then, you had Jay Chou, who I wouldn't call him a hip-hop artist, but I would place him up there with the other forefathers of Chinese hip-hop just because of the way he incorporated so many elements of rap and hip-hop into his music videos, his music, and in a very Chinese way too. Now, I think the second most obvious turning point to me, though, is 2017 with the airing of Rap in China, the first hip-hop battle show on primetime television. So would you agree with that assessment, and how has that impacted your work?
No question, without a doubt. Like, Hot Dog was the torchbearer. There's no question about that. He was the guy that could rap. I located his rap styles more authentically rap versus a Jay Chou, more of a pop star, more of a singer with melody. And he was the more commercially successful. And I was always watching. It was like a competition to see how impactful Hot Dog would be versus what we're doing with the Iron Mike. And would any of the Iron Mike guys catapult to a level of Hot Dog? That was always on my mind at the time. And, would Hot Dog ever come to mainland China? These are questions in my mind that I'm watching. Because, again, the parallels are crazy, man. First of all, I keep saying, Detroit is the consistent hometown. God, government, and gangsters, and Detroit is just always there for me in the narrative. I can't escape it, even with Hot Dog. So Hot Dog, two parallels at that time that you're talking about.
I know what you're going to say.
Two things. Well, is one, I think we talked about it before. This other one, I don't think I mentioned. But one is Why Time A.
Yes.
So that song was co-produced by the father of one of my classmates. Shout out to Paul Reiser Jr. and Paul Reiser. And Paul Reiser, wrote that song, part of that song. He was one of the, I think it was the Miracles was the group that wrote the original song.
That he interpolated. For his hook.
For his big hook, his big hit song. So here I am, a Detroiter, trying to promote hip hop, and here's the guy making this song. And just like the people at Up in Smoke had no idea that the guy is wearing the Chinese shirt, 99% of consumers of that song in China have no idea that that's a Detroit artist that made that. They don't know. They just know Why Time A. It's a hit song. Mm-hmm. It's in everyone's heart. We love it, but it came from Detroit. So that's one. Two, if you saw what Hot Dog did, he did exactly what Eminem was doing when Eminem got a Grammy and he was going at all the celebrities, Christina Aguilera, all these people. It was the same thing when Em went up there and his songs had shitted on everyone in the audience. Hot Dog pulled the same plug. He made a song dissing everyone in the industry.
Well, that was before.
Got an award.
Yeah. And then when he got his reward, he was like, 乔杰利家族, 你们看到了吗? 乔杰利家族 was like kind of the one of the, I think the managing group of one of the some popular boy band groups and stuff like that. So he was like, yeah, you keep on talking shit about me. Well, here I am with this award.
Right.
But then he later made a vlog and he was like, so some people think it's kind of ironic how I got this award when in one of my first songs, I said, 你以为领个金曲奖代表你是老几? So you think you're hot shit because you got the Golden Melody Award. And he's like, you know what? I still agree with that statement. I'm not hot shit because of this award.
Yeah, that's what he should say. I mean, so okay, another thing about that, which is interesting to me, finally when I did get invited to Taiwan, it was for the Golden Melody Awards. And I went, I think it was 2018, mm-hmm. I was on a panel. I spoke with, at that time, he was with 88 Rising, one of the executives over there, him and some other people. I think it might have been Mentone, not Mentone. The Rock Records people. What's the label? It's not right that spun off from Rock Records.
Oh, well, before it was Magic Stone, but Magic Stone's been out of business for a while.
Okay, well, I was meeting. I got to get the name.
I know it's Bensil, right?
Yeah, maybe it was.
That's the one that MC Hot Dog and MJ116 are under right now. It's also co-owned by Zhang Zhenyue.
Okay, I gotta double check then. But this guy is a more grassroots hip hop label, and I think he was managing Miss Cole.
Okay, that's not part of Rock Records.
Yeah.
It's called Yense,
Yeah.
Kao Records.
Yeah, I think that is.
Dila Pang, right?
Yeah, Dila Pang.
The fat guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm on the panel with him.
Miss Ko was first signed to him before she left, and I think she went to Universal.
Right.
Yeah. But
So-
her first record was with Yense.
So I get on the panel, I'm hanging out with those dudes, and that's when I realized, like, again, back to this whole thing about development. That Golden Melody Awards launched Hot Dog to a higher level because it was mainstream. And it was actually what I learned about the Golden Melody, which is shocking. So different from the West, but not that different, to be honest. The Golden Melody is a government organized award show.
Yeah.
This is not a commercial, private award. This is literally the government entertainment music industry award show, and they call themselves, their official title is the Grammys of China. That's what they officially.
Yeah.
I mean the Grammys of the Grammys of China. So they're copying American style, but what I learned is I don't know every election cycle if the different parties take over running that. But what I got, the impression that I got was that this was the DPP running that whole thing, and this is a very neoliberal agenda taking place within this music festival because they were pushing the exact same thing that the Democratic Party does in the United States: identity politics, minority issues, sexual orientation. They're like forcing this down young people's throat. They were busing people in, bringing people in, and it was really in contradiction to, in my assessment, the natural, more conservative vibe of Taiwan. So these guys were kind of manufacturing this whole thing, and they were the guys behind the rise of Hot Dog. And they were similarly in the United States, they were the people behind the rise of Eminem. So very like when you get behind the scenes to see who's pushing these cultures for what agenda, there's a lot more to it than most people realize. And I know you can speak to the details of it, so break it down.
You know, I was I don't know like too much inner detail, but I know like the Golden Melody Awards had KMT roots because this stuff existed before Taiwan liberalized. So like entertainment. And there was heavy censorship in Taiwan before then, so everything was regulated. Kind of not too different from over here, but with a different political lens, obviously. So, I mean, even after liberalization, these things kind of exist in an awkward space because they're still government affiliated as part of the Ministry of Culture.
Right.
So whoever is incumbent has a lot of say in whatever goes on over there. And yeah, so in 2018, I wasn't nominated for the Golden Melody Awards, but I was part of the Golden Indie Music Awards. Yeah, the Jininjiang. And I was nominated. I didn't win, but because I was nominated, I got to attend the award ceremony. And I had a very similar vibe. I was like, it's supposed to be indie music, but a lot of these people have labels. It's just they're smaller labels. I was one of the few who had absolutely no label at all, and I felt like I was gate crashing or something. But it was interesting to see up close, and it was definitely very coordinated by... You can't escape politics with this stuff. It definitely does have this influence. And I will say one thing that the DPP has done very successfully that the KMT hasn't is they know the power of grassroots music, so they know how to co-opt it. See, the KMT had much of its rule over Taiwan was during the dictatorial years. They didn't have to worry about these sort of strategies. They didn't have to worry about election cycles and whatnot because they would just keep on appointing Chiang Kai-shek because they suspended democracy because of the the martial law. So this is where the DPP really shines, and they know how to win over young minds and give a lot. They have these programs where if you are part of a band, like an independent band, you can apply for government grants. And then they really appeal to people who have a little bit more separatist tendencies. And I'm not going to name names, but some of the more pro-DPP artists, they make little it's like the city governments in Taiwan that are under the DPP. For example, Tainan, they might open up special cases or projects for these artists. So I mean, it's on paper, it's legal, but they're basically giving them government money because they feel like they're already carrying water for them.
Yeah.
So then they'll kind of promote them. So not everything is as grassroots. And I want to talk about something else that I saw a few years ago. I forgot what year it was, but they straight up had this hip hop school that I saw an ad on for Facebook. And I think one of the sponsors was straight up the NED.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And this was in Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, they're very active. And yeah, they're stirring up a lot of trouble. So yeah, keep me posted on that. I'd be really interested to look into that.
It's interesting though, because they do that stuff. They're effectively banned over here. But if you want to be successful commercially, you cannot lose the mainland audience. It's a population of 1.4 billion.
And that goes back to Hong Kong. I mean, to Hot Dog. Ultimately, what people have to realize is the Taiwan market is too small. It is too small to sustain a celebrity.
Yeah.
Hot Dog cannot even make a living based off the Taiwan market. Ultimately, he had to come to the mainland, and I was there for his first shows, his club show.
Was it 2007 or 8?
Yeah, it was around 2007 or 8. I was in Beijing.
I saw a documentary on that.
Yeah, I was on his first club show that he said. I was shocked it was his first show that I met it. I've been following the scene so much. I figured he had done a few before. And then later he started coming into Shanghai, and that's when he really did big. He started doing like 10, 15,000 seat Hot Dog annual Christmas event in Shanghai, which was impressive.
Is it at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
Exactly, at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And so you're right to point out how Hot Dog had crossed that barrier, because none of us in the mainland, no rapper in the mainland, we had done stadium shows before, but we had opened up for other acts. No one did their own stadium show. Hot Dog was the first rapper to do that in the mainland. And the second part of your question was the rap of China. What's interesting is, like, if you look, right before the rap of China came out, I had my documentary, The Story of the Iron Mike. That actually had already been filmed, and it just took a long time to edit it and put it out. A year before the Rap of China. It came out the same year Rap of China came out, like 2 months after Rap of China launched. And so we missed beating them to the punch. But in that documentary, we're all predicting this moment that we know is coming, that we're gonna have this breakthrough moment, that we can finally crack through this glass ceiling. And you can hear someone like Pac T kind of predict what is gonna happen. He's like, yo, the brands are coming, the stadium events are coming, the pressure's gonna be on. And it was really done well on how it predicted that. And I wish it would have came out just before the Rap of China, so it could have proved how much, we knew what was happening on the scene. But there were two things that were actually bigger than the Rap of China that people don't know. And this is where I talk about God, government, and gangsters. For me, God, I'm talking about us, the hip-hop believers, the faithful, the people that believe in the culture. We're representing the community of God. This is kind of like a faith for us, no matter how far you want to take it. Like whatever maybe you might, have your own faith, your own religion, but there's something very spiritual about this hip-hop culture that we believe in that pushes us, that's just beyond profit. Government is what it is, the government, whatever government you're living under. And gangsters, to me, really, the epitome of gangsters is actually the commercial market, the capitalists, the business community, the corporate world. And so even here in China, we are all still navigating through these three influences. And the commercial market in China is gonna do, once they see the money, it's just like anywhere else. these guys are going to sink their teeth in and go for the profit. They're not going to stop. And we have the gray economy over here, and we have the formal economy. It exists. There's a massive gray economy in China. And generally speaking, it boils down to profits. People are going to do with their self-interest, their best interest for their company, and money. The government comes in to regulate, to come in and say, hey, you're going too far. Like some of these things you're doing are hurting society. You got to pull back on it, and we're going to set the standard for you. That's how it operates in China. It's not as heavy as a hand as people think. They set the standard, they give you the guidelines, and really the rest of the time, it's up to us to conform or not, and to say if we're going to, and sometimes the commercial market and the community of God or whatever, they don't conform. They continue to go down their path, and there has to be this kind of give and take. And this happened with the rap of China, because in China, if you want to do a mainstream show, you're going to be much more regulated by the government. They are more hands-on when you're doing a mainstream television show.
No negativity.
Right. You're under the jurisdiction of the, they've actually changed the name of the body. They've collapsed it, but SART, State Television and Radio Administration. Mm-hmm. So that they're going to check you very seriously, and they're more hands-on in that industry. And so that's why things never broke through. But two things happened. One was a television show called Empire. The American show Empire was wildly successful in China, but it was Daoban. And just to go back a little bit, go back in history, the whole time hip-hop was spreading in China, it started with the Daoban cassette tapes.
Daoban
CDs,
is bootleg, by the way.
The bootlegs that was illegally circulating, but they're everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so people got access to the bootlegs. And now...
Those were the days, man.
Those were the days. But now there's like online Daoban. There's these platforms that were playing videos and shows sort of illegally. Someone would like upload them themselves, and they were getting billions of views. So Empire was the one where they looked at the numbers and they said, like, we can't deny this hip hop thing. The numbers are too big. The commercial industry said, we have to copy this. The second one was Show Me the Money in Korea, which was a copy of a lot of American shows. Again, Detroit Connection, the theme song that year when it was the biggest, Show Me the Money, was written by a Detroit artist, Royce the 5'9".
Oh.
He wrote I forgot what's the name of the song, but he wrote the song that was the theme song for the show. And so every time it was playing in China, bootleg, they were hearing the Detroit artist. That show, I think it even surpassed Empire. And so because that show was bootleg so much in China, the television station said, hey, we got to copy this. And that's what they did. They wholesale copied the show exactly to a T. The format, the even the layout of the stage. They didn't. I think they were even at points they were talking with them about copyright. They said to hell with it because, as we know, it's political. The Korean entertainment industry is actually it's not as commercial as people would think. The government, the military are heavily involved.
Oh, right.
And all the pop artists, they have to have service, like Taiwan, so they're integrated. And so, China was having a problem with South Korea buying those military installations, those nuclear defense systems, and they kind of put them under sanction. Why are we giving you access to China, to our market, and allowing you to promote war through your entertainment? And we're going to sanction you. We're going to limit what you can do. And we're not going to allow you to run the rap industry. We're going to do our own. They did the rap of China, 2.6 billion views the first year. The rest is history. And so that's what catapulted rap to something that it wasn't, and totally changed the game. And this is the world that we're living in right now. Still, the balance between God, government, and gangster. And the last one I want to say is here in China, the government has gotten much more active in hip-hop. Now, hip-hop is mainstream. You have the TV shows, and now there are bigger festivals. Mercedes-Benz, commercial venue, kind of run on a commercial system with some government oversight. Now, when the festivals are run, it's literally the local government that is promoting and investing in hip hop. The local government, including the local police and fire department and Ministry of Cultural Affairs, are all at these events. I've even seen the Cultural Affairs Minister on stage after the event with Guy and everyone, all the rappers on stage. They bring them on stage and look at the crowd like, we did it. They've convinced them to the point where they've got the whole city municipality. I did the festival in Nanjing. You know, YOLO is the sponsor. YOLO is a local baijiu, alcohol spirit. This festival is geared towards young people. The government's like, okay, you can sponsor a hip hop festival, but you are not selling alcohol on the grounds of the event. None.
It's reasonable.
It's a dry event. And ultimately, you know, it turned out not even being profitable or meaningful for Zhang Xiaobai because they didn't convert the, you know, alcohol age drinking beer drinkers to baijiu drinkers. That people actually didn't buy the alcohol. They went to the festival, they enjoyed the festival, they loved the music, they stayed away from the product. And they didn't care because it just so happens that some of the executives at Zhang Xiaobai actually loved hip hop. And so they used their brand to promote hip hop and not their brand. That's a contradiction in
the market.
In the market. These guys want to promote hip hop because they love it. And the government's promoting it because they've been convinced that it's healthy, it's positive, it's not going to be negative. And
I would actually say if the government didn't intervene and have its influence, then it very, very well could have become negative.
That's the point where I agree as well. And there's a point where I'm not mad at slowing down my rap battles because I don't think my rap battles were meant to have that level of influence and that level of coverage. It'd be a nightmare for the young people because it's really not. These are taboo topics that an explicit language that doesn't need to be mass promoted. And so the festivals that I'm at, you know, we actually have a stage, an Iron Mike stage at a 20, 30,000 person festival that is run by the government, that is run by the police. It is so much run by the city that when the festival finished, the local transportation authorities allowed free busing and free subway access for all the kids to get home safely. That's how integrated it is in China right now.
It's like hip hop's all about community, but this takes it to a whole new level.
A whole new level because this is literally, we're moving into the era of hip hop, Chinese hip hop with socialist characteristics.
Yeah.
It's to that point because the party is involved and they have different institutions that are involved. And it's big at the community level, at the grassroots level. Now they're doing like basketball leagues, village basketball leagues. That's the big thing that's booming in China. Remote villages where 15,000 people come out, outdoor basketball games on concrete, and people like Stephon Marbury and all the NBA players are coming, and hip hop is being infused into that. And so we are like the Chinese grassroots village basketball league has the potential to be bigger than the NBA.
Well,
more
numbers,
teams, more games. They have the potential to surpass the NBA. And NBA players are coming over and seeing that. Marbury is astounded. Jimmy Butler was over here. They're all coming to check it out. And this is mind-blowing because these are outdoor games. So the potential and peak for hip-hop in China still hasn't peaked, and it's daunting, and it's mind-blowing how far we can go and how far we've come.
In a way, I feel like because of the sort of dynamics between the market and the government over here, hip-hop has been able to flourish beyond a level that what you just said, a lot of it's pretty unimaginable to a lot of my American audiences. And as somebody from Taiwan hearing a lot of these details for the first time, it's also very mind-blowing. So I know back in 2019, you went back to Detroit to introduce Chinese hip-hop as part of the 2019 Hip Hop China Festival. And I think what's really interesting, and I'm seeing it more now, is how you explained in an interview that you wanted to introduce Chinese hip-hop at the China Festival in Detroit because hip-hop at this point is an inseparable part of modern Chinese culture. And it's one of the fastest growing parts of it as well. So do you want to talk a bit about what that experience was like and how it was received?
Yeah, it was extremely well. It was a dream come true for me. DCT of the letters, Detroit Chinatown, also stands for, dreams come true. So it literally was just a remarkable grassroots, authentic story of a kid from Wuhan goes to Michigan, goes to school, goes to college, Chinese dude, links up with an African-American real estate developer. This guy knows the real estate business, knows how to sell houses, and links up with the Chinese dude to buy some apartments off from their college and rent it out to students. And from there, they developed into, getting more buyers from China and developers and selling and flipping homes and having a nice little business together. And then they get the idea to say, hey, there are so many Chinese people in Detroit right now and in Michigan, why don't we build a Chinatown? And why don't we build a Chinatown that's like forward thinking, that's for the community as a whole, that this is not just some...
Stuck in the railroad days.
Right, stuck in the railroad days. This is not about just some Chinese guys trying to just like do some development and for us by us. This is actually a local Detroit African-American, a Chinese guy. And then they found, a Caucasian brother who happened to love Chinese culture, spoke Chinese fluently, and is into martial arts. And the three of them, it's like a white guy, black guy, Chinese guy, and they all have this multicultural sensibility to understand the importance of building a Chinatown, that they're going to build this, basically it's a commercial district, not a residential district in downtown, to just kind of, incorporate Chinese culture more into the city and let people know that Chinese culture is broad and that Chinese culture can include people of all different ethnicities. And it's not just the narrow ethnicity as it's projected and defined in America, that actually the Chinese...
There's 56 of them over here
There's
alone.
actually 56 diverse... And Chinese culture in and of itself has always been open and pragmatic to absorbing other cultures. And so you don't have to see yourself in such a narrow way that this Chinatown Detroit is going to be for the people. We're not going to build this unless everyone in the community is involved. And so they reached out to me as an ambassador because they did it was a food festival as a trial. And excuse me, it was very successful. It was too successful that there was overcapacity. That the venue that they chose, I think they chose like a 2,000 person venue. They had like 5,000 people. It was outdoor. It was packed. And it was so successful, the next year they kind of overreached. They wanted to get 10 or 20,000 people to come to Hart Plaza. And that's when they brought me in to bring in the artist. And, it went really well. I was really happy. They didn't hit the 20,000 mark. It rained. It was a really bad rainy day. And so I think they got about, they got the same as they got the last year, several thousand people to come out. But it was a good homecoming for me, and I was able to bring, my people, my family from China to meet my family in America and in my hometown. And the pandemic slowed that down for a few years. Like, Detroit got hit really hard with COVID. I actually lost one of my mentors, who was a Croatian Serbian dude, who was part of like the Detroit China Business Association for decades, and actually a conservative dude, a hardcore Trump supporter. And I only mention that because our politics are so different, but
you had common goals.
We had the common goal with even him being a conservative, right-wing, kind of Trump kind of guy. He loved China, and he always he worked so hard and lived his life to build a bridge between China and America. And we had that common goal, and this was one of my mentors who I was a fixer for when he had come to China just before that. He was one of the first people to get COVID in Detroit and was sent to that Belleville hospital, and he ended up dying, one of the earliest victims of COVID in Detroit. And so Detroit got hit hard. My homeboy that started the whole thing was from Wuhan. He was actually bringing PPE and bringing all kind of like donating gear to Detroit, his masks, all this stuff early on. like a lot of people weren't completely receptive to that. They didn't appreciate it. He was kind of vilified, and it was just a bad time to kind of push for Detroit Chinatown these past few years. It's only now starting to pick back up. I just saw the other day online a Detroiter on my social media saying, hey, they're about to build a Detroit Chinatown. I didn't know that. And so now it feels like the right time to pick up where we left off. And I'm really excited about that. That's going to be a dream come true for me to go back to Detroit, because I spent most of my time investing my money to bring Detroiters to China. So I was bringing the local legends from Detroit over here to tour. People like Jessica Care Moore, the poet, who's my god sister, who just got the first, Nobel laureate, or the laureate of the highest award you can get for a poet in America, for the city of Detroit. She just got that award. She's been on Nas's album, Jeezy's album, at the Apollo, and she was actually behind the scenes pivotal. Used to go to that hip hop shop, the early days with Eminem. She's a cornerstone in Detroit. Brought her out, brought her son out, brought out Marv One, the legendary battle rapper who battles Eminem in the 8 Mile Outtakes, pioneer the battle rap scene. One of Proof's kids, if you will. Proof is the mentor of Eminem.
Yeah.
Actually, my classmate from Jay-Z.
So you knew Proof?
I didn't know him. He was 1 year older than me. Many of my classmates did, but we shared the same small school at the same time. I think he went there for 1 or 2 years before he moved to Osborne. But yeah, we were at the same grade school. I learned about him after Jay-Z. I knew about him and had friends working with him. But as well, Royce the 5'9", brought him out. So I'm bringing the Detroiters out here, and now I get a chance to bring Chinese artists to Detroit, and we can really build these bridges. So I'm excited for that. So thanks for bringing that up. Detroit Chinatown, the bridge building and ambassador work continues.
Sounds super exciting. And hey, maybe if relations between China and the U.S. get better and the U.S. miraculously decides to join the Belt Road Initiative, you could be one of the people's ambassadors to lay the groundwork. I mean,
there it is.
I mean, what the huge part of Belt Road Initiative is reindustrializing, right? Detroit is one of the cities of industry in America. Auto industry, it could see a huge revival. It needs a revival of some sort.
Well, God, government, and gangsters. Quite frankly, I really don't care. And I've come to the point, I can't control my government. And I don't care what path they take. I'm on my path.
Right.
You're not going to stop me. I actually am on the Belt and Road Initiative. I'm part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Right. I'm engaged with that, and I'm bringing it to Detroit. So just like we built the Underground Railroad against the wishes of the authorities, we will be building the Belt and Road Initiative in America by the will of the people. And we'll continue to do that work. And that's really where I am. I was an ambassador. I worked with the State Department one time in China. They had a program called the Rhythm Road, where they sent over a group. They were called, oh man, I'm having a blank right now. My man Kokai, it's gonna come back to me because the group is disbanded. But they sent a group, Okus Akabin, from Washington, D.C. to China to tour around Beijing, Xiamen, Chengdu, and where's the last place we went? Guangzhou. 4 cities to go around the universities. There's a program internationally. It was run through the Jazz at the Lincoln Center. Tony Blackman is over there. You get State Department funding. You send these groups to places where Americans typically don't go. And it's for the agenda of America. They want Americans to be seen visibly abroad. I worked on that as kind of like a roadie to take around this group. And I realized my experience with the government, it wasn't that pleasant. I was happy that they sent the band over. They didn't tell the band to give them any kind of messaging. They allowed them to be authentic, their authentic selves, which was cool. I hooked up with some brothers from DC who were completely down, hip hop funk band, and they had the time of their life. But the person in charge at the State Department in China, he took a vacation when they came because he didn't really like hip hop.
It's mad disrespect.
It's mad disrespect. And that's why I got hired, because they didn't really have, I had a friend whose wife worked at the embassy, was pretty high powered. She knew about me and said, hey, well, we got this guy doing hip hop as an American, get him. So they got me to do it. And the American government is so janky. I had to apply for a grant to pay for everything. And then they pay later. They're slow with the processing. So I had to pay for like my flights and my hotel, all out of pocket. And
all the money's going to Israel and Zelensky.
Who knows where that money's going? It's not flowing where it should be. And what was clear was like they didn't really take too kindly of me. Actually, one of the ambassador people connected to that sat me down for a dinner or whatever, and they said directly, they said, you know what? You should stick to your commercial hip hop stuff. Leave this political stuff to us. And I was like, wow. He was like, you know what? Fair enough. I got no goddamn business doing this anyway. I don't want to do it anymore. I brought the same band back to China on my own dime. I flew them over and did my own cultural ambassador work. Like, I don't need your money or support. I'm not profiting from this stuff. I actually lost money. I had to pay for their luggage and things that they didn't even cover. So I'm literally taking a loss for the government that doesn't appreciate and respect me. Fuck you. Yeah. I'm gonna do my own thing and be independent and represent my own community and own people. And there it is. So that's what I stand.
This is U.S. government people in China.
This is the U.S. government people in China who are now like terrible. We have the worst Chinese ambassador in the history of all ambassadors. They need to send his ass back home. He's not representing me. I get frustrated because I live here. I've been here for so long. I'm a pillar. I have so much knowledge. And what we've learned is it was always the people that lived in China that were on the ground that had the best knowledge. We can look back at the records, the State Department details, CIA cables, when the Communist Party came into power in 1949, it was the business community and local people, Americans, that were telling the government that the Communist Party is a legitimate party, it's a legitimate government, they're doing better than the KMT, acknowledge them. And it was actually the military people, the deep state people that ignored that advice. And it's the same thing today. I go online and I listen to all these think tank people, all these sharks, talking all this mumbo jumbo about China.
They're idiots.
They've never been here. They don't know what's happening on the ground. They don't have more expertise than I do. I would dust them in a debate. Why is my voice not being privileged? It's because my voice is being marginalized because they don't want people to know the truth. Yep. And that's the crazy thing. They sent out warnings to the black community during COVID. African Americans, you should be on alert and be safe and, be worried about your concern in China, your safety in China. The audacity.
They targeted not just any Americans, but specifically African Americans and trying to sow divisions.
The audacity that you've never once reached out to me to ask how I'm doing, but you're gonna tell me what. And if you would have took a survey of black Americans, which we did, because we police ourselves, we protect ourselves. When anything happens with the black community in China, bam, I'm on the phone, I'm calling. I got a brother that I went to college with, my roommate in college that ultimately came to China partially because of me, but now he's in China as well. He's in Shenzhen. We heard about, anything related to black people in China, he will go there and investigate himself. We'll interview people, call people, and make sure everyone is okay. During COVID, all that, we checked out on our people. Nobody had a complaint. All the black people were like, man, we're cool, we're good. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not gonna say no. There were some people during COVID, the lockdown in Shanghai, some new people that had some bad experiences.
Of course.
There is. But when the situation in Guangzhou happened and the stories made it seem like black people were being discriminated against, that's when I called black people all around China to check, and we weren't being discriminated against. That wasn't happening. And I debunked that. And I go into that. I talk a little bit on Carol Ja's show, and I talk about it a lot on Danny Haifang's show, where I did a couple episodes.
Two good friends of this show, by the way.
Yeah, Love and Light, Danny Haifang, Carol Ja, two of the homies. I think Carl may have been how I got to know you. I think I've seen some of your content as well, besides his, but he was one of the main people that I learned about you on your political content. And that's what's crazy, bro. Like, when I think about you as your political commentary.
Yeah.
First. Even before as a rapper, which doesn't make any sense at all. Sometimes I forget that you're a rapper because your music it's not really heavily promoted in the mainland. Like it's not just like a lot of rappers, a lot of dope, amazing rappers. If you're not on the rap of China right now, if you're not in the mainstream, a lot of people don't know about you. And there's all these dope rappers that have their little pockets that we don't know about. And so I'm happy.
Got some work to do. I'm working on my album, but I'm also, another part of it is understanding how the censorship here works, and also how a lot of the platforms, I mean, they get directives, but then they interpret the directives, and all of them want to play it safe. So you got to first go to the more lenient platforms and get big over there. So the other platforms are like, hey, this person's safe. It's kind of like speeding on the highway. You don't want to be the first person speeding, and you don't want to be the fastest. But if someone else is speeding before you and going faster than you, then you're kind of comfortable speeding a little bit, Yeah. It's kind of how the censorship here works, and it's just figuring that out. And it's funny because if it weren't for my rap, I wouldn't be relevant politically in the English-speaking world, because the reason why people even know of me on Twitter and just in the English-speaking spaces on the internet, political sphere, is because of my music video that I shot in North Korea. It was used as the ending song of a podcast episode years ago, and then they invited me on to talk about my trips to North Korea.
Right.
And that's how, and then people started following me, and I just started talking about, I started realizing, hey, a lot of people have opinions on Taiwan, regardless of whether they're pro or anti-China, but they can't get the basic facts straight. So me being somebody who is very familiar with this history and the relations, I decided, hey, what if I just start talking about this more and help people form more informed opinions on these issues. So even if I don't agree with the anti-China people, but if you want to be anti, you should be anti for what it is and not what it isn't. And if you want to be for it, you should be for what it is and not this sort of imagined fantasy version you have made up in your heads. And now on that topic, since my show is called Straight Talk, and we're almost done, by the way, it has a focus on cross-strait relations, needless to say, between Taiwan and the Chinese mainland. And I want to talk a bit about how, Chinese hip-hop today is really the result of pioneers from both sides of the strait making their contributions, and how the development of hip-hop in China is kind of like the economic development, with Taiwan being ahead for a time, at least that's my impression, and then helping the mainland a little bit thanks to, people like you forming connections. And then hip-hop on the mainland eventually grew to surpass Taiwan, and how Taiwan's hip-hop stands to benefit from closer and better relationships with the scene over here and some friendly competition. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's a great way to put it. I think that's a really interesting parallel. And I think that's a very promising and hopeful perspective. When I went to Taiwan, I'm not going to lie, some of the guys on the panel, I could tell they didn't get the politics. They were all feeding into like domestic Taiwan politics. One was a guy from 88 Rising. He made some little snide comment about Xi and what's going on in the mainland. I'm like, why are you even opening your mouth, man? You from America. You're American born in China. You don't even live over here. But he's like pandering to the audience. And then I talked to some young people, and I these people in the industry, I think she was like my handler or something. She was I was like, exchange WeChat. Let's just exchange, and she's like, no. She was afraid to exchange WeChat. She was so afraid. She said, we don't use that here in Taiwan. And so, I'm like, man, it's that extreme that you can't even use WeChat? And so
what's interesting, as I want to add to it, is a lot of the white collar people buy into the hype, but then a lot of the blue collar people over there, they don't really care about this stuff. Because when I did my substitute service in the fire training center, it was in just a very rural area. And everywhere I went, I would hear people talking about, oh, so-and-so's kid is going to the mainland. Oh, yeah, he's going to make a lot of money. And this other kid's, he's over there doing very well. And then, me and some of the people working at the fire training center, the IT guy, he's a local over there. He went on to work at TSMC, but he's a local there. He doesn't really buy into a lot of the hype. We were ordering fake Gucci shoes on WeChat during just like during work hours. Like when there was nothing to do, we'd be like, hey, let's look at this. Oh, this is
Gucci shoes.
Yeah. Hey, shoes are gonna wear out. You might as well get high quality fakes.
If you're from Taiwan, there's no reason why you're not fully integrated with the mainland. And I want to talk, this is a really important point, and it's the right point. With hip hop, there was always that connection. The community is beautiful. I'll tell you a story about my first kind of Taiwan political experience. It is sensitive. All this stuff is sensitive, and you got to get over the sensitivity, and you got to get past the drama and get a better grasp of the reality, which I'm starting only after decades, really starting to figure out. I've learned a lot in the past 3 or 4 years about Taiwan, Taiwanese people, and their sensibilities and some of the taboos that we can really move beyond. I have more and more friends that I'm talking to that have Taiwanese girlfriends or getting married to Taiwanese wives. So they're talking about how to bridge the cultural gap. I have plenty of American-born Chinese friends that tell me their parents in Taiwan all move to the mainland to retire. Just outside of Shanghai, there's a small city town that's all Taiwanese that's connected to an iPhone factory. It's like 20, 30,000, probably more, 50, 60,000 Taiwanese people move over. And the environment is much more welcoming to Taiwanese than people need to know. Maybe there's a bit of bias towards welcoming Taiwanese, and I want to talk about that because I was actually shocked to learn. When 2005, when were you here in 2005? Because we had the Iron Mike, I'm pretty sure it was in December.
I was 12. I was 12, and it was during that typhoon. That's why I didn't get to see the city.
Do you remember the month?
I think it was July or August.
All right, I got to look back when, you know what? That's maybe when we did do the battle.
I still have the pictures on my computer back in Taiwan.
Do you know when Davey was here? Because I think you were here at the time Davey was here for the Iron Mike.
I think he came here in 2005, right?
Yeah. And it was a typhoon.
Yeah.
He was here. There was a typhoon at the battle. That's why it wasn't a huge show out. So I'm just like,
I wish Davey the best, but when I first started rapping and I was like blowing up in the Taiwanese underground.
Yeah, he's hated. Yeah.
I was hated, and like he was telling me to quit.
Well, that's what Jeff was telling people too. He always tell the guys, and that's what I told people as well. I'm like, I always tell people in hip hop, like, don't try to make that a career. Mm-hmm. Don't make that a career pathway. Make sure you do something else. Don't put all your eggs in that basket.
No, he wasn't saying that. He was just saying you should stop rapping completely.
Yeah, I mean, but that's rapper
fine.
Shit.
That's rapper shit. But the way I think of it now,
you'll never let that down.
No, the way I think of it now is, he was younger than I am right now. Right. I mean, who hasn't been young and a little bit like
Well, he was arrogant as shit.
Yeah, needlessly arrogant. I mean, he did blow up and he did get big. He did. I mean, understandably at that age, it does get to your head a little bit. So
I still think, I'm probably gonna get dusted for it. I still think he's the most talented rapper to come out of Taiwan. That's my personal opinion. I'm gonna keep a buck. We are very picky about rap styles in Chinese and different flows and patterns and schemes and vibes. Miss Cole's dope. She's really dope. She's cool. I just didn't like a lot of the Taiwan rappers too. Mm-hmm. Even Hot Dog is at a basic level of rapping to me. Even Hot Dog. That's a pretty bold thing to say. But he's not at the higher level of like a Davey or
He's good at writing lyrics, but I think his delivery and technique has just kind of stagnated at this sort of level, which is fine. He's an OG. But when it comes to technique, a lot of no names I feel are above him.
I'm sure. So
I mean, no hate.
But the thing with Davey is, to me, like freestyle is the most advanced form of rap, in my personal opinion. If you can freestyle at a high level, you might not be able to master writing songs in a structured way, which Davey has learned to do. Davey's first songs I hated too. I thought it was all trash. I don't like the vibe. I don't like the energy. But this dude understands rhythm and melody and flow and mic control at a very extreme level.
Yes.
And even to this day, like, and I know because I'm seeing Davey on stage side by side with other rappers. Mm-hmm. He learned from Snoop Dogg. He learned from Bone Thugs and Harmony. He learned from MC Supernatural because he performed with them side by side. Mm-hmm. It's a difference.
He does have a genius.
Exactly. He's a genius.
He was mocking Young Ken for not having good microphone control. He was like, in the freestyle, he was like, da-da-da-da-da.
首先跟各位评审讲解一下，他们奈何不懂爆麦，这要怎么当个 MC？ 你听看看，连最基本拿麦克风都不会，你要怎么玩？听我的声音从来不会爆麦，唱到这边的时候还是一样都会了，怎么办？我现在可以拉回来，跟你往看看，你跟我玩的什么技巧？我跨了我啦，你讲个一。
epic. He was his what he did in Shanghai was classic, and that's classic Davey. And so yeah, I'm gonna let him know. And you're not the first person he shitted on.
I know I'm not. You know, I don't.
He would roll around with the fur coats, the Rolls Royce, like he was the first one to do it. Smoking out with Snoop Dogg back in, you know what I mean? Blazing out with Snoop. Who does that? Babone with like he was the ambassador. He was feeling himself, and he knew he was better than Hot Dog and those guys, but they blew up and did bigger. And it was because of his personality. Davey was controversial in Taiwan. And he went to China and had about a dozen more controversies that you don't know about.
I heard some.
Yeah, so he's been a controversial guy.
Yeah.
It's in his DNA.
It is.
But, you know, now he's got his own studio. He's about to launch a club. He's always been an entrepreneur and done other things. And that's a message like I really want to deliver. I was like a philanthropist when it comes to hip hop. We still good?
Yeah, we're recording.
I'm like a philanthropist with the, you know, I invested my money into the culture and scene, but I always had other things that I was doing, industries that I was involved with. And I do have mixed feelings about using hip hop. This thing about art for art's sake, that you just get caught up in the culture so much that it becomes an end of itself. I'm really not into that camp.
It gets boring.
It gets boring and you lose your sense of purpose. You need to be tapped into bigger things.
Real things.
Yeah, more important to yourself and bigger industries. Like the entertainment industry is a drop in the barrel. As much money as it generates, you look at actual raw materials and energy and whatever, medicine. Like, entertainment, not even close.
You gotta have your feet grounded to make good art. Otherwise, you know, a lot of rappers, they have very good first few albums, but then they run out of things to rap about, so they just rap about the rap game, which is...
They get into La La Land and into... It becomes too illusionary, and so that's why, you know, I'm very interested in development. We're talking about building cities, Chinatown, Belt and Road, and hip-hop is being supported, you know, by, like I said, the government over here.
On an official capacity.
And in an official capacity, Tencent is actually my biggest investor and supporter. Tencent is the biggest tech company in Asia. And they're actually backing and supporting hip-hop right now. So people need to know that, some of these behind-the-scene things about, so they can get a better idea of how big hip-hop can actually grow. And so back to our point about Taiwan is, what I've learned is, the mainland is very welcoming of Taiwan people.
It is.
They're protected. They're protected by law. You cannot bully Taiwanese people. I hope people know that. Like in the school system, all the school systems are briefed. Someone from Taiwan comes over, you are to integrate them into the school system. You don't.
He's our compatriot.
Yeah, you protect them. You don't bully them or treat them as a separate citizen. You can't denigrate them, and so there's been some interesting experience. Like when Davey came over, I was afraid that I was through battle rap about to instigate some political tension. Like all the battle rappers are going to destroy this dude, and like, what am I doing right now? Like, and
he's not like that though in terms of politics.
He's not. But what's cool is no one from the mainland violated like that. They just kept it rap. There were some shots, like political, but at the end, right after the battle, I actually thought it would get physical. Or, you know, like I thought it could be some real tension that I'm instigating with this 2005. Right after the battle, his father was in town. I don't know if his father actually saw the battle. Usually I invite everyone to dinner. He invites us to dinner with his pops. And we all have this big dinner with the hip hop community and the people from Taiwan. And it was beautiful. And he was totally embraced. I brought MC Ann out. Him and MC Ann met. They did a cover shoot. Hong Kong, Taiwan Connect. Like, we're building community and love and camaraderie. And he's always been welcome the entire time that he was in town. And the last point I want to make is, the last story is, you know, we just did a party a couple months ago. Allen Iverson came out. Nasty Ray from Beijing, Iron Mike battle champion, came out to DJ. So we all go out to this party to hang out and have fun. It was like 2 nights at this one club. A lot of underground, old school rappers were coming out. I had this young kid from Xinjiang, He's like 6'2", 6'3", big dude. He can rap. And I'm like, let me get him acclimated to the scene. I'm gonna take him, show him around the party. And then after the party, we're all kind of, on a cloud nine, just really enjoying it. We had a great time. We go outside, but let's battle. Let's battle right out in front of the club. And so I want to test this young guy to see what's his freestyle like. Can you battle? And there was a lot of dope MCs that showed to the party that came out, and we all started doing our thing. And I'm battling this one dude. He's like big, tall, 6'3", Chinese rapper, like a basketball player. Tattoos everywhere, which is crazy. And, we do our little battle. We laugh, smile, hug, fun. There's one kid from Taiwan, and I realized he's a Taiwanese student that's hanging with their crew. He was completely drunk, inebriated, and he wanted to battle me. And so he gets up in my face and goes crazy. He's spazzing out, drunk, spitting all over the place, being mad, crazy. And I noticed the way that the local kids kind of took care of him and went around him. It was like, first of all, they surrounded him and pulled him. And even though it was a rap battle, and I didn't care. I'm so down to earth. They felt offended. Mm-hmm. They were like, you might not know, but this is our OG. You don't disrespect him like that. Like whatever they taught you, like you don't come over here messing with our. And I was pretty impressed and humbled by that, the way the kids pulled him aside. And I don't know what was in him, whether he knew what I was, like who I was or not, or if he just wanted to prove something. But there was a way that I realized, and I could tell, and I've seen this before, how people are socialized to like kind of look after and care for the Taiwanese compatriots while they're here in China.
Yeah.
And it's not in a harmful, hurtful way. Mm-hmm. So it's actually beautiful. And I just want to say, like, I've corrected my position because there was a point, I think, when the Nancy Pelosi trip happened, if I would have been asked on interviews or asked publicly, I probably would have said some things that are incorrect and inaccurate. I probably would have said that the people in Chinese are more nationalistic and more aggressive than the actual government, and that it's the government holding them back. If you think that it's the government that wants to go to war with Taiwan, wait till you see the sentiments of the people. But that's not true. That's not accurate. And the point that I'm learning is, sure, there's going to be right-wingers in China. And just like anything in China, there's a lot of them. So there may be more right-wingers than there are in an entire country in Europe. Mm-hmm. But don't let them online and their impressions and their views misconstrue what the majority of people in China truly feel. And that is something that I can say is very difficult to gauge. Mm-hmm. How do you know the sentiments of 1.4 billion people? And I've traveled this country extensively, 60 cities nonstop, continuously, doing my own surveys to test the sentiment of the people. And even that isn't enough to guarantee that you have a true idea of the true sentiments of people, because people are fickle and they change. Mm-hmm. But I will say the majority of people that I have met have been quite warm and quite balanced when it comes to Taiwan.
Exactly.
And people, they're not out for blood for the Taiwan. That's the last thing that they want.
I tell people this in Taiwan, and the ones who have been here understand. The ones who haven't think I'm making things up.
They're brainwashed and paranoid. Yeah. And so the bottom line is, get over here and get with the hip hop community.
Yeah.
Get over here, and whatever community that you're into, whether it's just one of them, connect with the people and live and enjoy life and learn through their eyes before you make these hard judgments. Yeah. Because unfortunately, you may be trapped into some propaganda that's just not going to be beneficial for you or the future.
I will say though, and you make very good points about all of this, and that is basically my assessment on sentiments towards all things Taiwan over here on the mainland. I've received nothing but hospitality. I can't really hide the fact that I'm Taiwanese given the way I talk. Especially when I'm in the South, I feel like when I go to the North, I change my accent up a little bit just to be a little bit more understood. But in the South, I kind of just don't care because everybody's a Southerner. We all kind of understand each other. So I just kind of talk the way I think I sound a little bit more Taiwanese over here than I am in Taiwan, actually. I don't know why. But yeah. On the topic of, you being worried that it might start something, I feel like rappers over here don't really shit on Taiwan that way unless somebody from Taiwan starts it first. And were you following things in 2007 when we had that huge the cross-strait hip hop crisis, I would say?
Tell me about it. Give me up to speed. Refresh my memory.
Oh.
2007. I gotta get who would it be?
Okay, so the Nangang basketball team from Jiangsu played a basketball game in Taiwan, and one of them elbowed a Taiwanese player, and then afterwards he didn't apologize and he just high-fived his teammates. So Duaki in Taiwan got pretty pissed off, so he made a song dissing him, and then obviously it got a little bit political. He's like, I love mainland chicks, but not your sisters. I'm fucking your mother, or something like that. So then,
Last thing you want to do? Last thing you want to say?
yeah. So then, have you heard of Tianjin Fan?
Who?
Tianjin Fan.
I think so, actually.
Yeah, he made a diss back, and he not only dissed the
Yeah,
rapper.
from China, mainland China, Kenji. Okay.
Yeah, and then he also started like making comments about Taiwan. So then and then a bunch of other rappers started joining in, and it was a huge back and forth, and some other rappers on Taiwan started joining in as well. It was quite interesting. It was quite fun.
Interesting. 2000. So no, like I wasn't aware of how elevated it got. I just know that
It was mostly internet stuff.
right. It was one of those internet beasts. I know Dog G got popular for a minute and then he fell out of favor. So I don't know if it was in that window. That must have happened later.
Well, he was popular in the early days. You know, if it weren't for Duaki or Dog G, MC Hot Dog might not have blown up the time he did, because when they were all underground, MC Hot Dog was he's a son of a pastor.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
that
a son of a
makes sense.
pastor, and
I think
he
it might
grew
have-
up kind of sheltered, and he was just like a normal, like college kid, kind of nerdy. But then he was really into hip hop. And Duaki, he was at the University of Physical Education, so he's a little bit more, less of that nerd stereotype.
Yeah,
you know,
more of
had
a
more
jock.
more of a jock, and
Yeah.
he also had more connections on the streets. So then he kind of showed MC Hot Dog, you know, the other parts of society that
can see
MC
that.
Hot Dog wasn't familiar with.
Yeah.
And they also used to bully MC Hot Dog a lot before he got famous. Like they would
I can see that. Totally. He was kind of skinny and lanky.
they would get him drunk, and then he'd pass out, and then they cut up his boxers into one of those, like, those Hawaiian, what are those things? Those little Hawaiian skirts?
Yeah, the Hawaiian skirt.
Yeah.
Straw skirt.
Yeah, straw skirts. They would
Hula skirt.
Yeah, they would cut his boxers in hula skirts. And but then he got big, and of course the dynamics kind of changed. But Duaki was, because he got more political because of this incident, a lot of record labels in Taiwan didn't want to touch him because they didn't want to hurt their business interests on the mainland. So, but then he formed more connections with the local politicians and whatever, and he also
He got too political.
he also borrowed some money from friends and family to fund his first independent album.
Okay.
After he this is all public record that he's saying. I'm not like divulging like secret information. So so then he went, like, after his first album came out in 2002, he had no more album releases until late 2011. So during this time period, he was just doing a bunch of like mixtapes and internet stuff, and he got big in Taiwan, popular because he would always comment on current events in the form of rap music. Yeah, and then 2011 came along. He released his second studio album independently, without a label, and he's been steadily doing that. But yeah, he really fell out of favor during the time between 2002 and 2011 with the mainland, just because of his more provocative and just views that people here don't see eye to eye with.
Well, speaking of, on influences from Taiwan, big shout out to Jason from, was it Channel V or what was he on? The host. Is it Jason had a crew called the Homies? This guy was a TV host, TV presenter. You got to know him. He's one of the early influences from Taiwan.
I might know his Chinese name. Does he have one, or does he go by Jason?
He used to always hang around. I'm not going to say the guy's name because this is going to get in trouble. But the guy, is Chinese Hazel. You know what I'm talking about? He used to play back. They're both hosts. Hazel was like a dark-skinned Chinese dude. And
From
Jason,
the mainland or Taiwanese?
Taiwan.
Taiwan. Oh, 黑人老大.
Yeah. In Chinese, in English, they translate as Blackie.
Yeah.
The worst name ever,
Yeah.
but they call Haven like him. And Jason, he learned the ropes from Jason. Jason came before him. I'm pretty sure his name was Jason. And Jason had a crew called like the Homies. They looked like Tupac and everything.
I think I heard a bit about it, but I didn't follow too much.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, it is Channel V.
It was Channel V.
Yeah.
He was the host on that. He used to come party in Shanghai. I met him on the streets a Wednesday night, Blaze nights, when we were throwing parties. I met the kid, and back then, before he even blew up, was a rapper. And he was one of the pioneers, one of the bridge. He'd come back and forth, and he was heavy into basketball. And so basketball was also another conduit for hip hop. As basketball has blown up, there's always been synonymous with hip hop.
And Chinese dudes love basketball to begin with.
Yep, it's out of control right now. So that's another bridge, a tool, we can use, to be ambassadors and bridge communities. But shout out to him. Shout out to all the Taiwanese hip hop, and what you're doing is phenomenal. Like, I'm excited because, I think the reason a lot of your stuff didn't catch on and didn't spread is, one, it's very taboo to talk about politics in general.
Yeah.
Most Chinese rappers do not specifically talk about politics, or despite what people think, this idea that, all these rappers are delivering a political message. They're not. In general, it's taboo to talk about politics. The argument is, if you're not a professional, if you haven't went to school and got a PhD in politics, that let the party officials do that. So
it's the opposite in America, which is like ideology is something you're supposed to talk about. Over here, ideology is something that's supposed to guide society, and you just don't really talk about it too much unless you're a decision maker.
There it is. And so you're like quite taboo. And so people are going to have, and then, coming from where you're coming from, they're going to be, unless you're directly connected to some kind of party organ, or like now people are going to question how much of your message is right, blah, 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 blah. But what's exciting is this has definitely changed as well in the past 10 years, and especially the past 5 years, where now on social media, it's becoming more common. There's more social influencers that are coming out, and you're tapped into that now. And this is going to be really exciting. So to hear where your music goes in China, and then the fact that your English is so fluent and that you can speak on these political topics so well, you're going to be a really important influencer in the hip hop scene. I really foresee that.
Hopefully, but if not in the hip hop scene, I do want to show more people, show my audience these sorts of people to people cultural connections that, quite frankly, are left out of the conversation in Western mainstream media. It's really dehumanizing. So people talk about oh, I'm pro Taiwan, I'm pro China, whatever, but it's like they're like sports spectators. They're not really thinking about the people or what the people are going through. And it's really doing a huge disfavor, and it's really disrespectful to the people on the ground on both sides of the strait, in my opinion. But I know they mean no harm, but it's just, I don't blame them. So then that's why I'm trying to be here to provide this sort of context.
Well, I appreciate it. I've learned a lot from the content that you put out, tremendous amount about Taiwan. So I want to salute you for that.
Thank you. Learned a lot about Detroit and Shanghai today from you, and about just hip hop in China in general and all of the different connections. Like, I knew a lot of the dots, but I didn't really connect them all. Yeah. And now everything just makes a lot more sense.
Dope.
Yeah. So I think these are the discussion topics that I have for today. And I want to, but before we end the chat, is there anything you'd like to add or tell my audience? Like, where can they find your work or follow you, etc.?
Yeah, people always ask me that question. I'm pretty low key and behind the scenes, so you can find me. I got a Twitter account. It's Iron Mike at Twitter, so that's the best place to find me. Look me up. And love and light. Just come visit us in China and get to know us. Plug in with the people. Get to know the people. And that's pretty much it. Spread love, spread light, spread positivity, and don't fall into the trap of the warmongers. We out here spreading peace and love. So keep those vibes up.
Very beautiful message. So, brother, thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to come do this and, share your depth of knowledge with my audience. Hopefully conversations like this, like I said before, will show the human side of all of these politics and current events that's going on, and will help de-escalate tensions that are going on in the world, and help the people from all over the world form more genuine connections as you all build a better future for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. My man. Peace.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Straight Talk. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Detroit Showtime as much as I did. For more talks like this one, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred listening platform, as well as on YouTube or Rumble. If you have any feedback or topic suggestions that fit the theme of this podcast, please feel free to send an email to straighttalk@shangyu.tw. I'd now like to give a huge thank you to my upper-level patrons, Alvin Jia, Mecha Patriot, Wang Yijing, Pranav Sima, and Michael Kim. Finally, if you like what I'm doing and want to support me sharing a perspective on Taiwan and beyond that's not covered by mainstream media, please consider becoming a patron on my Patreon, becoming a member on my YouTube channel, or making a contribution to any of the links in the show notes. See you guys in the next episode. Just learned a lot of history about both China and Detroit from your little just summary of how this all came to be. But before we move on, I gotta respond to a phone call. It's that North Korean restaurant.
Oh, nice.
I think they're trying to confirm the reservation, so I'm gonna call back real quick.
Let's get that right. I've been in China, in Shanghai, 25 years, and I've never been in a North Korean restaurant. So
really?
Shout out to Shanghai for hooking it up, the plug. And it's really rare and difficult to find these places.
喂，你好，您刚打来是不是？是。是的。目前是没有变动。是的。好，谢谢，晚点见，拜拜。
So they're just checking up to make sure that we're going to show up.
Yeah.
Which probably means it's going to be booked and it's packed.
Yeah, because a lot of people want to go see them perform. You're going to see a concert tonight.
I'm excited, man.
Yeah. You're going to see, sometimes they even sing Cantonese songs. You ever hear a Cantonese song sung with a Korean accent?
North Korean Cantonese accent.
Yeah.